Welcome to Wingfoil Jibes Part 2. In the previous tutorial, I explained jibing technique in detail. Because a lot of people struggle with wingfoil jibes, I've decided to make this second installment with some extra tips. Firstly, I'll explain the biggest issue hindering people's jibes. Then I'll look at footage of people's jibe mistakes and explain what went wrong. Then I'll give a few tips on equipment and conditions for learning to jibe. The biggest issue stopping people from jibing is incorrect preparation. You don't just go from some short flights to them being able to jibe. There are in fact several key skills that you'll need to have a good chance of jibing. Firstly, you must master taxi jibes. These will help you get used to the hand-wing movement needed during a jibe. That's an essential skill because during a foiling jibe, you'll want to focus on foiling, so the hand-wing part of it must be second nature. The taxi jibe will also get you started with toe-side stance. You need to learn to twist your upper body in order to power the wing properly and taxi crosswind in toe-side stance. The more toe-side skills you have, the better your chance of jibing will be. Taxi jibes and toe-side riding are covered in the Learn to Wingfoil playlist. Next, it's essential you practice some S-turns or roll turns. Start with minor turns, build up to larger turns. You need to know how to roll your board towards hillside or toe-side. This is also explained in the Learn to Wingfoil playlist. After you can turn confidently, it's well worth practicing downwind dashes. That's because a jibe will probably be the first time you head fully downwind, on purpose anyway. Heading fully downwind can take some getting used to. When you head fully downwind, the apparent wind can disappear or even reverse. Your hand wing can then drop or block your path. To head fully downwind, hold the hand wing overhead and level at a low angle of attack. That will prevent issues with the apparent wind dropping or reversing. Before you lose the speed needed to foil, turn back to your original course. Practicing this skill will ultimately mean when it comes to jibing, you can focus less on your hand wing and more on your foiling. Being able to correctly deal with stalling your foil will greatly improve your chances of jibing. When your speed starts to drop too low to foil, you'll feel the foil's lift dropping. A natural but incorrect response to this is to shift more and more weight onto the back foot. Normally this rearwards weight shift increases a foil's lift, but when your speed is too low it does not. Excessive back foot pressure increases drag, further reduces your speed, and makes the foil drop. Plus you then drop while you're tilted back and not upright, so you generally fall while this happens. A much better response when your speed is almost too low to foil is to shift some weight to the front foot. You then stay more upright and glide down nicely. Instead of falling, you keep moving. This is explained in detail in the stalling video, also within the Learn to Wingfoil playlist. Before going for a foiling jibe, you should aim to do foil to taxi jibes. These are great for a number of reasons. You learn to apply some front foot pressure and glide around the jibe instead of stalling. You learn to be upright and balanced on exit. Importantly, you can do these with low speed, reducing risks and building confidence. As you gain confidence and experience, gradually carry more speed. You'll find you touch down later or less. Before you know it, you'll be foiling the entire jibe. Many people can get around the jibe but then have issues while in toe-side stance. The more toe-side riding skill you have, the easier you'll find the jibe. So, as well as taxiing in toe-side, you can also challenge yourself to try and take off and do a short flight in toe-side stance. The more comfortable you are in toe-side, the better. Now, let's look at a few clips of wingfoilers failing to jibe and see what we can learn. Thanks very much to everyone who submitted footage for this section of the video. Let's look at a jibe attempt courtesy of Tom. There's a few smaller issues with his technique, but there's one major issue that will stop him improving his jibes in the future. Tom's stance is way too offset. It's so offset that he has lost the full range of control over his foil. Your foot placement dictates the boundaries of where you can shift your weight. Generally, if you apply weight outside of this perimeter, you're going to lose balance. Although in a sharp turn or while powering the wing significantly, for example, you can lean your weight far outside of this perimeter, but that's another story. With such an offset stance, to shift weight towards hillside, to roll the board towards hillside, you have little choice but to do so primarily with the front foot. In order to shift weight towards toe side, to roll the board towards toe side, you have little choice but to do so primarily with the back foot. This is exactly what happens as Tom begins his jibe. He leans towards toe side to begin the jibe, and his foot placement means he's forced to rely on the back foot. Back foot pressure makes the foil climb and eventually breach. I would recommend Tom shift his foot position so both feet are at least touching the centre line. This will give a full range of weight shifting options. You can lean towards hillside, or toe side to roll the board. While controlling roll, you can also control pitch. At any point you are free to lean towards the nose to descend, or free to lean towards the tail to ascend. In this clip from Brecht, we see virtually the same issue. Brecht's friend also has an overly offset or non-centered stance. When he starts the jibe, he leans towards toe side as he should, but his stance means he must mostly use the back foot, which makes his foil climb. He does notice he's climbing, so he responds with a weight shift onto the front foot. But because his front foot is so far on the hillside half of the board, front foot pressure also means he's applying weight towards hillside. This hillside pressure removes the toe side roll needed for the jibe and ends the jibe. In this case, the foot straps plus neoprene boots are making it difficult to have a more centered stance. If you're at the stage of learning jibes and tacks, it's much better to have no foot straps. As a novice foiler, you really want to learn the effect of different foot positions, and you want to be strapless in order to do that. Also, foot straps greatly increase the chance of ankle injuries for novice foilers. If you do have foot straps, it is possible to achieve a more centered foot position. You could use a single front strap, or you could overlap the two front straps, allowing for a more centered foot position. Or you can use much wider straps, which mean your foot can sit further inside them without getting stuck. Compare these two clips sent by Yannick of his brother working on jibes. In both cases, he's doing an underspeed attempt to the jibe, but there is a key difference between the two attempts. In the first clip, as he loses speed, he tries shifting weight to the back foot. You can see the board's nose raising up. This promptly stalls the foil, kills all speed, and makes it hard to balance. By comparison, in the second clip, as he's losing speed mid-jibe, he instead applies some front foot pressure. Now the board glides down to the water and keeps a little speed. This speed stabilizes the board enough for him to pull off a taxi foot swap. Hopefully this shows how important your response to stalling is. Let's look at this next clip from Yannick. A common response to not managing to foil around the entire jibe is to start trying to rush around the jibe. In this example, the foiler tries using more and more toe-side roll to get around the jibe more sharply. What most people don't realise is that the more roll you have, the more you lose lift. This means the foiler loses lift much earlier in the jibe. They then touch down with the board still rolled towards toe side, giving almost no chance of staying balanced. High roll jibes take much more skill. I recommend you do not try to rush around the jibe. Instead, get your low speed foil to taxi jibes reliable. Then, gradually ride in faster rather than using more and more roll. The water and weather conditions you are in have a big effect on your chances of learning to jibe. If the wind is very gusty, you will need to concentrate on that rather than concentrating on jibing. If the water is very choppy, you'll be busy adapting to the changes in lift created by each wave. And again, you won't be focusing on your technique. Learning to jibe on flat water will really help as you can focus solely on technique. Generally speaking, it's not equipment hampering people's jibes. I've tested about 100 foils and they all jibe fairly easily. It helps to have a foil that can glide quite far and that will lift at a fairly low speed, allowing you to practice at low speed, and that is still quite manoeuvrable. A front wing with a medium-high aspect ratio around 6 and a fairly large surface area, slightly over 20 cm squared per kilo of rider, and a thinner profile for less drag, all gives a lot more glide, but should still be nice and manoeuvrable compared to an extreme high aspect ratio front wing. I would strongly advise against small front wings like an 800 or 1000 cm squared for learning to jibe, as you will need to be moving much faster and therefore there's much less time to process what's happening during a jibe. Gear choice is a huge topic, so a lot of this will be explained in a separate equipment tutorial. Thanks for watching and good luck learning to jibe.